Imagine completing like 208 passes in blistering 100-degree heat, just absolutely suffocating your opponent in possession, keeping the ball pinned in their half for an entire hour.
Right.
And somehow you're still finding yourself statistically closer to actually losing a World Cup knockout match?
Yeah, it sounds impossible.
It does, but that is the bizarre, just completely counterintuitive reality France faced in their 1-0 victory over Paraguay, in the 2026 round of 16. So today, we are tearing into the mechanics of that match for you.
And we've got a great stack of sources today.
We really do. We're pulling from on-the-ground reports from The Guardian and the Indian Express, plus some advanced predictive modeling from the Tactify, and of course, FIFA's historical databases.
The divergence between the data going into this match and what actually materialized on the pitch is just, well, it's staggering.
Yeah, completely different stories.
Exactly. Because if you look at the raw statistics like possession, pass completion, territorial dominance, you see one story. But if you analyze the actual spatial geometry of the pitch, you see a masterclass in tactical frustration.
Which is exactly our mission for you on this deep dive. We're looking far beyond the 1-0 scoreline to uncover the specific mechanisms of how France survived this attritional warfare.
It was a grind.
A total grind. So we're going to examine the shifting biomechanics that won them the game, what Kylian Mbappe's historic penalty means for how we evaluate greatness in this sport, and why the specific defensive architecture of their next opponent, Morocco, poses an exponentially larger threat.
It really forces us to ask a pretty uncomfortable question about tournament favorites. Like, is absolute tactical control actually just an illusion if you can't penetrate the penalty box?
Wow, yeah. And let's start answering that by looking at the environment because, you cannot analyze the tactical decisions in this game without factoring in the physical toll.
Oh, for sure.
It's July 4th in Philadelphia. The U.S. is throwing its 250th anniversary bash right outside Lincoln Financial Field. And inside, the temperature is 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, 38 degrees Celsius?
Yeah, essentially an oven.
Right. So before a single ball is even kicked, aerobic capacity is already compromised. And stepping into this heat is a French team that, the Tactify models gave them an 85.1% probability of winning in regular time.
Which is massive.
Yeah, and Paraguay had just a 3.4% chance.
Well, the models favored France so heavily because they evaluate the historical efficiency of France's 4-2-3-1 system.
Makes sense.
Right, the algorithms see the devastating vertical speed on the wings, the creative overloads in the midfield, and they project a comfortable multi-goal victory against a theoretically weaker roster. But what's fascinating here is how Paraguay completely defied that statistical narrative.
They really did. They didn't even try to play the expected game.
No, not at all. Predictive models often struggle to quantify the sheer disruptive power of organized defensive suffering. Paraguay basically abandoned any pretense of wanting the ball.
Yeah.
They set up in a 4-5-1 shape and compressed the entire playing area into a block that was like no more than 25 yards deep. Just hovering right at the edge of their own penalty box.
To put a visual on that for you listening, Paraguay essentially treated the penalty area like a highly compressed spring. They absorbed the immense weight of French possession by packing 10 men behind the ball.
And starving France of any space behind the defensive line.
Exactly. If you are a French attacker, you are suddenly operating in a phone booth.
And that spatial restriction completely neutralizes raw pace.
Because there's nowhere to run.
Exactly. When you compress the vertical space that severely, the defending team forces the attacking team to just recycle the ball horizontally. You create a tactical horseshoe.
A horseshoe, yeah.
The ball moves from the left wing, back to the center backs, over to the right wing, and then back again.
Which perfectly explains that mind-bending statistic from the first half. 0 shots on target from either team before the halftime whistle.
None. 0. It's an extreme statistical anomaly.
Has that even happened before?
Barely. We've only seen that happen in a World Cup knockout match 3 times since 1966.
Wow.
It is the textbook definition of sterile domination.
Wow.
Look at the passing network after the first hydration break. France strung together 208 passes in that window. Paraguay managed just 33.
208 to 33.
Yeah, but those 208 French passes were happening entirely in front of the Paraguayan defensive structure.
So it's essentially an illusion of dominance. France looks like they are controlling the game, but they are actually just playing right into the hands of the Paraguayan defensive blueprint.
Exactly.
It's like showing up for a refined fencing match, and then you realize your opponent just wants to drag you into a back alley brawl. They are expending massive amounts of energy in a 100-degree heat, just knocking on a locked steel door.
And add to that the physical disruption Paraguay introduced. The Guardian report highlighted this stark discrepancy Paraguay committed 13 fouls to France's 11.
Right.
Yet somehow, referee Ilgis Tantashev didn't show a single yellow card to a Paraguayan player while booking 3 French players.
Which is wild when you watch the tape.
It is, because Paraguay was highly systematic with their fouling. They were making these reckless, goal-scoring denial tackles.
Right. They were smart about it.
Very.
Yeah.
They were making small, cynical fouls in midfield to break the rhythm of the game the exact moment France tried to accelerate the tempo.
It reminds me of trying to run through a non-Newtonian fluid. You know, if you strike it with speed and force, it just hardens into a brick wall.
That's a great analogy.
France wanted a flowing, rhythmic match, and Paraguay forced them to wade through concrete. I mean, the frustration on the French players' faces was so visible. Kylian Mbappe didn't mince words afterward either.
Oh, the tuxedo quote.
Yes, he said, "They probably thought we'd show up in tuxedos, but we know how to play rough, too."
That quote exposes such a fascinating psychological layer.
How so?
Well, teams that rely on technical brilliance and structural beauty, they constantly battle this stereotype that they lack grit, that if you drag them into a purely physical, attritional contest, they will eventually fold.
Like they're too fragile for it?
Right. And Mbappe is pushing back on the idea that France's technical superiority somehow makes them soft.
I hear that, but I mean, there is a massive difference between having the grit to survive an ugly game and actually possessing the tactical tools to win it.
Fair point.
For over an hour, France was completely stuck. Those 208 passes didn't pick the lock. So we need to analyze how that deadlock was finally broken in the 61st minute, because it wasn't some sudden flowing team move that unlocked Paraguay.
No, it was a highly specific substitution by Didier Deschamps.
Right.
He pulls Bradley Barcola and brings on Désiré Doué. And this is where we see the shift in biomechanics completely change the game.
Because they're very different players.
Extremely. Barcola is a progressive runner. His primary asset is his stride length and his ability to exploit open grass.
Which Paraguay had completely eliminated.
Exactly. When Paraguay dropped their defensive line to the edge of the box, Barcola essentially lost his primary weapon.
Because you can't outstride a defender if there are 3 more defenders standing 2 feet behind him.
You just run into a wall. So Deschamps recognizes this structural reality. He brings on Doué, who operates with an entirely different kinetic profile.
Right.
Doué is a high-frequency, close-control dribbler. He operates with a much lower center of gravity. He doesn't need 20 yards of open space to accelerate. He only needs 2 feet of space to shift a defender's momentum.
He's the player built for the phone booth.
Exactly.
And it pays off almost immediately. He receives the ball on the left, but instead of trying to hit the byline for a cross, he just drives directly into the teeth of the Paraguayan block.
He just takes them on.
Yeah, he beats the first man, slips past the second, and forces the third defender, Diego Gomez, to make a desperation challenge inside the box.
It's the sheer panic that close-control dribbling induces in a compressed space. Gomez commits the foul, VAR confirms it, and the entire complex tactical stalemate suddenly collapses into a single, isolated psychological duel.
A penalty kick in the 70th minute. And the pressure surrounding that specific moment is almost suffocating to think about.
Oh, absolutely.
A scoreless knockout match. The heat. The entire tournament balancing on a 12-yard kick. Here's where it gets really interesting. Kylian Mbappe steps up against Rolando Will and completely sends the goalkeeper the wrong way.
Cold as ice.
It looks effortless, but the historical weight of that goal is just earth-shattering.
It really is. We have to contextualize these numbers because Mbappe is rewriting the mathematical boundaries of the sport right now.
Break it down for us.
That was his 11th career World Cup knockout stage goal. He officially breaks the all-time tie, surpassing Brazilian icons Ronaldo and Leonidas, who held the record with 8 knockout goals each.
I want to pause and emphasize that for you listening. At this point in his career, he has already scored more World Cup knockout goals than Ronaldo.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And furthermore, it elevates his overall World Cup goal tally to 19.
19?
That puts him just one single goal behind Lionel Messi's all-time men's record of 20. But the discrepancy in volume is the crucial factor here.
The number of games, you mean?
All right. Messi required 30 World Cup matches to amass his 20 goals. Mbappe has scored 19 goals in just 19 appearances.
That's insane.
He is operating at a strike rate of a goal a game on the absolute biggest stage in global sports.
And it completely upends the 2026 Golden Boot race, too. Mbappe and Messi are currently deadlocked at 7 goals each for this tournament, but Mbappe holds the official lead due to FIFA's tiebreaker rules regarding assists.
Right, because Mbappe has 2 and Messi has 0.
Exactly. But look, I want to challenge the French narrative here for a second. Let's pull back from Mbappe's individual brilliance and look at the French system as a whole.
Okay.
You have a team completing hundreds of passes, dominating territory, yet they rely on a 70th minute penalty drawn by a substitute to beat a team that sat in their own box.
Yeah.
Does that not expose a glaring structural flaw? Like, are we looking at a cohesive, dominant machine or just a disjointed team being repeatedly bailed out by a generational anomaly?
I mean, it's a really compelling critique, but I think it misinterprets Didier Deschamps' core managerial philosophy. We naturally want elite teams to validate their status through aesthetic dominance, right? We want to see the intricate passing sequences that carve open a defense.
Beautiful game.
Exactly. But Deschamps operates on pure pragmatism. He doesn't view reliance on individual brilliance as a flaw. He has structurally engineered his team around it as a feature.
So the sterile domination, the sideways passing, that isn't a failure to execute. It's actually calculated patience.
It's entirely about minimizing variance. Deschamps builds an incredibly solid defensive floor. Keep in mind, France has only conceded 1 goal in this entire tournament.
That's true.
They are perfectly comfortable looking offensively disjointed or letting an opponent drag them into an ugly physical struggle.
Because they know they won't break.
Right. They know that if they simply keep the game at 0-0, the opponent has to maintain flawless defensive concentration for 90 minutes. And human error is inevitable.
Someone's going to slip up.
The defender will eventually miss a tackle, misjudge a run, or, concede a penalty. Deschamps trusts that his defensive structure won't crack, and he trusts that Mbappe's ruthless finishing will eventually capitalize on the opponent's inevitable mistake.
Which introduces the core theme we really need to track as this tournament progresses. If Mbappe is shattering records primarily through this cold, calculated efficiency rather than flowing, beautiful team play, it fundamentally challenges how we measure greatness.
It really does.
For 15 years, the greatest of all time debate has been heavily anchored in the aesthetic beauty of players like Messi. The artistry, the vision, the impossible dribbles.
Highlight reels.
Right. But if Mbappe breaks Messi's all-time record in significantly fewer matches, primarily by being a ruthless executioner in grinding knockout games, does the benchmark for the GOAT shift from the artist's canvas to the pragmatist's ledger?
It's the tension between volume and efficiency, between style and sheer undeniable output. And France's reliance on that output is about to face the ultimate stress test.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if Paraguay was a complex defensive puzzle, France's next opponent is an absolute masterclass in structural integrity.
The quarterfinal bracket has really delivered an incredible matchup. France heads to Gillette Stadium in Boston on July 9th to face Morocco.
What a game that's going to be.
Right? And Morocco is entering this game with immense momentum. They systematically dismantled Canada 3-0 in the round of 16, orchestrated by a brilliant midfield performance from Azzedine Ounahi. But the metric that dictates everything about this matchup is Morocco's current 34-match unbeaten streak in international football.
34 games.
34 games.
Sustaining a streak like that requires way more than just a talented generation of players. It requires a defensive culture that rivals elite club systems.
For sure.
Walid Regragui has built a Moroccan side that executes a highly compact low-to-mid block. And unlike Paraguay, who retreated entirely into their own box, Morocco is much more proactive in how they deny space.
They don't just sit back.
No, they choke off passing lanes in the midfield transition zones, preventing teams from ever establishing a rhythm.
And we know this matchup isn't just theoretical. I mean, consider this. They have the psychological edge.
Yeah.
Are they uniquely equipped to exploit France's offensive struggles, especially considering they've already knocked out the Netherlands in the round of 32 on penalties?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to remember this is a direct rematch of the 2022 World Cup semifinal in Qatar.
Right. France won that encounter, too.
They did, but the underlying metric of that game tell a completely different story. Morocco held 60% of the possession. They forced France into incredibly uncomfortable defensive postures. They proved they could actually impose their will on the French system.
So the fear factor is gone.
Entirely. Morocco no longer has any fear regarding France. Yeah. But honestly, the defining tactical battle of this quarterfinal won't happen across the entire pitch.
Where is it going to happen?
It is going to be hyper-localized down France's left flank.
The clash everyone wants to see. Kylian Mbappe going head-to-head with Morocco's right back, Achraf Hakimi.
It's cinematic.
It is, because these two are club teammates at Paris Saint-Germain. They share a locker room, they train against each other daily, and they are incredibly close friends.
And that matters tactically. Normally, defending an elite attacker relies on studying film to identify their kinetic tells.
Yeah.
You know, slight drop of the shoulder, the angle of the hips before an explosive sprint.
Sure.
Hakimi doesn't need film. He has thousands of hours of muscle memory calibrated to Mbappe's exact movements. He knows exactly how Mbappe masks his intent.
So how does an attacker counter a defender who already knows the punchline to every move?
You can't rely on deception, so you have to rely on structural support. And this is where Rigrigi's defensive architecture comes into play. He won't leave Hakimi isolated out there.
No way.
Actually, we will see Morocco's defensive midfield anchor, Sofiane Amrabat, constantly shading over to that right side. They're going to build a two-man cage around Mbappe.
A cage.
Yeah, Hakimi engages the primary duel, and Amrabat seals off the inside cutting lane.
But wait, if Morocco successfully commits two elite defenders to neutralize France's primary weapon, it fundamentally alters the math on the rest of the pitch. Someone else has to be open. How does Deschamps adapt if the pass to Mbappe button is jammed?
Well, the solution has to come through the center, specifically exploiting the half spaces. If Amrabat is pulled out of the central midfield to double-team Mbappe on the wing, a structural void opens up in the channel between the Moroccan center back and their fullback.
Okay.
And this is where the profile of a player like Michael Olise becomes the absolute linchpin for France.
Because he operates in those exact pockets of space.
Precisely. Olise has the spatial awareness to drift into those newly created voids, and he has the passing range to punish a defense that over-rotates.
So it can't just be the Mbappe show.
Right. France cannot just forcefully pound the ball down the left wing and expect Mbappe to perform miracles against a double team led by Hakimi. They have to use Mbappe's gravitational pull to open up the rest of the board.
So what does this all mean? When you pull back and look at the trajectory of this French team, their victory over Paraguay proves their immense capacity for suffering.
Oh, without a doubt.
They prove they can survive 100-degree heat, they can navigate a cynically physical low block, and they can maintain their composure when their intricate passing yields absolutely zero results. But they survived purely because Kylian Mbappe provides an unprecedented level of ruthless efficiency.
But the reward for surviving that Paraguayan blockade is a collision with a Moroccan team possessing superior structural discipline, a 34-game unbeaten streak, and the specific defensive personnel perfectly tailored to neutralize France's biggest advantage.
It really is the ultimate clash of ideologies for a World Cup quarterfinal. Deschamps' pragmatic reliance on individual star power going up against Rigrigi's impenetrable collective structure. As we wrap up our analysis today, I want you to keep a close eye on that shifting definition of greatness we discussed.
It's going to be fascinating to watch.
When Mbappe takes the pitch in Boston, chasing down Lionel Messi's all-time record, watch how he operates.
Because if he secures that record in a grinding tactical slugfest against Morocco, it might officially cement the new era of the Geo debate. An era that values the cold, undeniable mathematics of knockout efficiency over the romantic aesthetics of the beautiful game.
Are we witnessing the final transition from the artist to the executioner? We will find out at Gillette Stadium. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We thrive on the material you send our way, so keep exploring those complex narratives, keep questioning the tactical setups, and bring your next stack of sources for us to unpack together. We will see you next time.